On this edition for Saturday, December 11th, tornadoes and severe storms strike and dozens are killed. Librarians push back against book bans. And California tries to keep housing affordable using a new approach. Next on PBS NewsHour Weekend.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Sue and Edgar Wachenheim III, Bernard and Denise Schwartz, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, the Anderson Family Fund, the JPB Foundation, the estate of Worthington Mayo Smith, Leonard and Norma Chlorfine, the Rosalind P. Walter Foundation, Koo and Patricia Ewan, committed to bridging cultural differences in our communities, Barbara Hope Zuckerberg. We try to live in the moment, to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments.
For 25 years, Consumer Cellular's goal has been to provide wireless service that helps people communicate and connect. We offer a variety of no-contract plans, and our U.S.-based customer service team can help find one that fits you. To learn more, visit consumercellular.tv.
Additional support has been provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. More than 30 tornadoes and severe storms tore through the central and southern U.S. overnight, with dozens of deaths reported in several states. Kentucky suffered the worst in the storms when several tornadoes hit, leveling a candle factory in the town of Mayfield, where more than 110 people were working. Search and rescue efforts continued throughout the day. At least 6 states were hit, from Arkansas, Tennessee, and Missouri, all the way to the Illinois-Indiana border, just south of the Chicago area. Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear said one tornado in his state touched down for 227 miles. As of early this afternoon, he said the death toll was more than 70 people and could exceed 100.
This has been the most devastating tornado event in our state's history.
In Illinois, police in the city of Edwardsville confirmed casualties at an Amazon warehouse where a roof caved in. In Arkansas, a tornado hit a nursing home in the city of Monette, killing one person and trapping 20 people inside for hours as the building collapsed. Storms also killed at least 3 people in Tennessee, which saw winds exceeding 80 miles an hour. Late this afternoon, President Biden delivered remarks on the tragedy.
We still don't know how many lives are lost or the full extent of the damage. But I want to emphasize what I told all the governors. The federal government will do everything it can possibly do to help.
COVID-19 cases are once again on the rise in the U.S. According to the New York Times, as of yesterday, the country was averaging 120,000 new cases a day, as well as nearly 64,000 daily hospitalizations. Michigan is currently experiencing the highest hospitalization rate in the country. As of yesterday, it was seeing an average of more than 4,600 people admitted every day. Health experts say much of this surge is being driven by the Delta variant, although cases of the new Omicron variant have now been discovered in at least 27 states. 61% of people in the U.S. are now fully vaccinated against COVID-19, and more than 50 million of those people have received a booster shot. Memorials for former Senator Bob Dole continue today in his home state of Kansas. The casket bearing the late Senate Republican leader and one-time presidential nominee was flown to Salina, Kansas last night after services at Washington's National Cathedral yesterday. This morning, a memorial service was held at a Roman Catholic church in Dole's hometown of Russell. Senator Dole was a World War II veteran and will be buried at Arlington National Cemetery. He died at age 98 last Sunday. For more national and international news, visit pbs.org/newshour. This week, the United States began returning migrants to Mexico under a program officially called the Migrant Protection Program, which began under the Trump administration. The controversial program forced migrants seeking asylum to wait in Mexico instead of being released in the U.S. to wait for hearings. The Biden administration shut it down, but courts ordered it to restart. I spoke with the Washington Post's Mexico bureau chief, Kevin Seif, about the change in policy. Kevin, what does it mean that the administration has restarted the Remain in Mexico policy?
It means that on the border right now, beginning this week, asylum seekers who arrive at the U.S. southern border are being sent back to Mexico, to northern Mexico, to await their asylum hearings. It looks a lot like what it looked like when it occurred under the Trump administration.
Does the policy play out the same regardless of where people are coming from? Meaning, is it different for someone who's trying to come from Mexico versus Central or South America or Haiti?
Yeah, so U.S. officials have said so far that the policy applies to everyone from the Western Hemisphere. So far, only limited numbers of people are being processed through MPP. And the Biden administration has said, along with the Mexican government, that this time there are more safeguards in place to protect, the security of the asylum seekers, to make sure that there's more shelter. The Mexican government has also insisted that asylum seekers get access to coronavirus vaccines while they await their court dates. So there are some changes. In the early days of the sort of part 2 of MPP, we don't exactly know how it will play out or even necessarily where. But this is what both of those governments have said about the sort of new version of the policy.
And what about the time it's going to take for someone to get through this process? I mean, how long is Mexico expected to host these folks?
The first iteration of MPP found migrants waiting for well over a year for their cases to be heard. The Biden administration has said that they would like to expedite these cases and move them faster through the system. But how will they do that with such an enormous backlog? It's unclear. I mean, talking about a large pool of people waiting in various forms to cross the border.
Kevin, there was also a horrible tragedy that you also covered. Tell us a little bit about that.
There was a trailer full of more than 100 migrants, mostly Guatemalan migrants, traveling to the U.S. border. And a little bit north of the Guatemalan border, the trailer got into a traffic accident, and at least 55 migrants so far have been killed in that accident. It speaks to the desperation of people in Central America. It speaks to the enormous demand for labor in the United States. And the reason, of course, that these people were hidden in a trailer in the first place was because they were trying to deter Mexican authorities who've been asked by U.S. authorities to do this sort of apprehension work. And so yeah, the dark side of the kind of migration policy that we've seen applied both in Mexico and the U.S. And I think the return of MPP certainly isn't a sign towards a kind of humanitarian progress on immigration policy. I mean, the first version, as we know, led to more than 1,000 migrants being kidnapped along the border. Many people being abused, some parents being forced to send their children alone across the border, lots of really horrible stories. And so the return of it scares a lot of people, both migrants and people who care about the policy.
Kevin Seif for the Washington Post. Thanks so much.
Sure.
Around the country this year, school librarians are reporting more frequent demands from parents and politicians to ban or censor books available to children. Nandra Niddle, education reporter for the 19th, a nonprofit newsroom covering gender, politics, and policy, documented the growing chorus of complaints and the resistance from many librarians. I spoke with her earlier this month. What is the trend that your story picked up on? Why is it that we're seeing librarians on the front lines?
We're seeing librarians on the front lines of a new book banning movement that really started to gain momentum over the past year or so. So efforts to ban books aren't new. They go back decades, but over this past year, we've seen parents, politicians, school board members target books specifically by LGBTQ authors, by authors of color and other marginalized authors.
What do these authors or their books have in common when it comes to content?
Their books discuss race, they discuss gender, they discuss sexual orientation, sexuality, all topics that some parents, some politicians feel are inappropriate for K through 12 students to read about or explore.
You know, we hear the phrase critical race theory battered around a lot in this, and whether it's actually being practiced or rolled out in schools, most school districts don't do that. But why do the critics here who are trying to get these books off the shelf think that these books that they're trying to ban has critical race theory? Or is it adjacent, or how are these all connected?
I think critical race theory, as you mentioned, it is something that's taught usually in law schools. It's not taught in K through 12 schools. But I think the real issue here is that many of these parents don't want their students learning about race, learning about racism, learning about people who identify as trans or gay or some other marginalized group. They feel that their children are being indoctrinated into some sort of a liberal agenda that they take issue with.
So going back in history, librarians have often been the champions of First Amendment rights and having to make sure that people get access to books that are on the shelf. So what have librarians been doing, whether they're in the K through 12 systems or beyond?
So librarians have been making sure, first of all, that they understand their book development collection policies. And so these policies inform the public how they built their book collections, but they also include protocols for members of the public who might disagree with the library carrying a certain book. So they're making sure that they understand what's in those policies. So if a member of the public comes in, they can tell them how these procedures work. Because oftentimes, some of these parents, some of these parent groups, and some of these politicians have not actually read the books in question. They might have read an excerpt from the book, decided, this is inappropriate, and try to get the book banned just by reading a passage of a book.
I know it's different in different states and different school districts, but if you can, in your reporting, what are some examples? What are the kinds of books being targeted and where?
One book that has caught attention all over the nation is a book called Genderqueer, and it is written by a person who identifies as non-binary in terms of their gender. And that book has graphics as well. So there's images in the book, and it also discusses this person's journey to kind of accepting themselves as being non-binary, as not conforming to, typical gender constructs. And so that book, I would say, from coast to coast, no matter which region of the country, has really sparked some outrage in some circles.
Is this something that we're seeing more of in conservative districts or red states than blue states, or is it happening all over?
It's happening everywhere. I'm based in California. It's happening in California, which is a very liberal state as well. There are some school districts here who have anti-critical race theory policies. Ramona Unified School District in Southern California is an example. And some of these school districts, in addition to creating these policies against race, are also, like I said, targeting gender, targeting sexuality. But with race, they're also going after, in some cases, books about history. So there was a book about Martin Luther King and the March on Washington in Tennessee. The group Moms for Liberty said that violated the state's new critical race theory policy. There are books about Ruby Bridges, the little girl in Louisiana in 1960 who desegregated her public school. So they're going after topics and after subjects that Americans have generally considered to be heroic.
Nandra Little, education reporter for the 19th. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
California is facing a severe housing crisis as rents and the price of homes skyrocket and the population surges. In July, the state's legislature passed a package of bills to address housing and homelessness and increase affordable housing. In it was $500 million, which nonprofit organizations can use to preserve housing when foreclosure or the risk of foreclosures bring tenants closer to eviction. These efforts include an affordable housing model, the Community Land Trust, which is gaining steam across the country. NewsHour Weekend's Yvette Feliciano reports from the San Francisco Bay Area. This story is part of our ongoing series, Chasing the Dream: Poverty, Opportunity, and Justice in America.
Get your new home.
Okay, let's go.
Jocelyn Foreman moved into this house 3 years ago. Located in the city of Pinole, it is a 17-minute drive from the two public elementary schools in Berkeley, where she works as a family engagement specialist. The 51-year-old mother of 5 and grandmother of 3 has struggled with homelessness for years in California's tight housing market, so she made sure to pay her rent every month. She even took a second job.
So in order to live here, I needed to have another source of income. That source of income only allowed me to stay home one night a week.
Literally every other night you were sleeping
At my clients. I'm a caregiver in the evening, and I was doing 12-hour shifts 6 days a week.
But in April of 2019, she got a notice that the house was going up for sale. She didn't know that her landlord missed payments and the house was entering foreclosure.
I was stunned, I was confused, because for the one time in my life, I did everything right to the letter. All money transfers went through my bank account. So I had a paper trail for everything. And it was disheartening.
My favorite part was when Jocelyn made the decision to stay.
Yeah.
Foreman called her friend Christine Hernandez, who works for the Sustainable Economies Law Center. Hernandez suggested a way to make the house permanently affordable under what's known as a community land trust, in which homes are bought by a nonprofit trust that sells them to low and middle income buyers at below market rates. Community land trusts are often supported from a variety of sources, including federal funding, property donations from local governments, as well as individuals. In the U.S., nearly 300 communities, 24 in California, are using land trusts to create and preserve affordable housing, especially in urban areas where housing costs are high.
The whims of the private market.
Oakland's Community Land Trust, known as Oak CLT, was formed in the aftermath of the 2007-2008 foreclosure crisis. Steve King is the executive director.
The crisis was particularly acute in Oakland, and very specifically in what we call the flatland neighborhoods of Oakland, which are the predominant lower income neighborhoods and historic black and brown neighborhoods in the city. There were 13,000 foreclosures in the city. That equates to roughly 1 in 5 owner-occupied homes. So 2 out of every 10 homeowners went through foreclosure and lost their homes.
In its early years, Oak CLT used federal funds from the Neighborhood Stabilization Program to rehabilitate a group of 16 vacant foreclosed single-family homes. Then it sold the homes at below market price to residents making less than 80% of the area median income, and required that any resale of the homes be subject to the same income restrictions, effectively taking the property off the speculative housing market.
And the buildings that are on the land are owned by the residents that occupy them. So we split title, and it's a form of shared ownership where residents and the community kind of share the rights, responsibilities, risks, and rewards of ownership in a more equitable way.
This is Tyson, the old guy.
Oh, cute. Hi, Tyson. Hey, guy. Hey, sweetie.
In 2013, Shamar Tooze, who was working for a nonprofit, bought one of Oak CLT's homes. This particular house, formerly vacant and blighted, was part of a rehab project with Oakland's Youth Employment Partnership, which gives teens and young adults job training.
It made it so that it was really accessible. In the beginning, when I first purchased my house, to be able to get into home ownership as a first-time home buyer in what was already starting to become a pretty overheated market. It's definitely given me stability and allowed me to stay in my community.
Across the bay, in 2017, residents of this 40-unit building in San Francisco's Tenderloin district were facing huge rent increases. The building was not under rent control. Lorenzo Listana is a community organizer for the residents.
A lot of people here are seniors, working families. Housing is so important because they work just right in this area.
After protesting the rent increases, tenants are now working with the San Francisco Community Land Trust to purchase the building. They have raised $1.4 million in equity and are now crowdfunding part of the purchase. The goal is to turn the building into a housing cooperative, giving tenants an opportunity to have an ownership stake.
We want to maximize the owner-occupant home ownership in California.
State Senator Nancy Skinner, who represents California's 9th District, which includes much of the East Bay, authored SB 1079, passed last year. The bill ends the bulk buying of homes at foreclosure auctions that was widely seen in the last foreclosure crisis.
What they would do is go to the foreclosure auction, which allows you to buy multiple homes in a single bid. You have to pay cash. So who else can compete? After that foreclosure crisis, we saw the lowest number of homeowners in our Black community, in our Latinx community, dropped down to numbers that we hadn't seen since the 1970s.
How are foreclosure auctions different now?
Now, every home has to be bid on separately. You could still have an auction with 50 homes, but each bid has to be separate.
The bill also gives tenants a 45-day window to get financing to purchase their building with the help of a nonprofit, such as a community land trust.
Then there's the hope for a person who doesn't have the same kind of means to be able to be a homeowner and share that American dream.
In Pinole this spring, Jocelyn Foreman became the first person to test SB 1079. She partnered with the nonprofit Northern California Land Trust, the state's longest-running land trust, to attempt to purchase her home at the foreclosure auction. She had 45 days to exceed the highest bid on her home, which was $600,000. Foreman's friends and her employer, Berkeley Public Schools, started Jocelyn's Corner, successfully crowdfunding over $177,000 for the down payment and needed renovations for the house. With that seed funding, the Northern California CLT secured a loan to buy the house, allowing Foreman to stay. And now she has the option to purchase the home at an affordable price.
I didn't have a dime. I had no savings. What I did was hard. It was very hard, but I legit stood on the shoulders of my community. And what I like to say is, this was my community's opportunity to give back to me for years of service. And everybody doesn't have that.
Recognizing that very few people can raise money like Foreman did, Skinner led efforts to designate funding in the latest state budget for a newly formed Foreclosure Intervention Housing Preservation Program.
And so we were able to secure $500 million to help fund foreclosed homeowners, renters, land trusts, so that they could compete in those auction bids and try to buy foreclosed homes.
In October, renovations finished on Jocelyn Foreman's house, and she was able to move back in with her twin 20-year-old daughters and grandson.
My daughters went to prom from here. I had my first Christmas with all of my children in here. My first grandson came home in here.
What do you see the future of this house being? Do you want them to live in this house for years to come?
I plan to live for a long time, but when that time comes, I know that my family will be rooted. And so for that, I'm thankful.
That's all for this edition of PBS NewsHour Weekend. For the latest news updates, visit pbs.org/newshour. I'm Hari Srinivasan. Thanks for watching. Stay healthy and have a good night.
PBS NewsHour Weekend is made possible by Sue and Edgar Wackenheim III, Bernard and Denise Schwartz, the Cheryl and Philip Milstein family, the Anderson Family Fund, the JPB Foundation, the estate of Worthington Mayo Smith, Leonard and Norma Chlorfine, the Rosalind P. Walter Foundation, Koo and Patricia Ewan, committed to bridging cultural differences in our communities, Barbara Hope Zuckerberg. We try to live in the moment to not miss what's right in front of us. At Mutual of America, we believe taking care of tomorrow can help you make the most of today. Mutual of America Financial Group, retirement services and investments. Additional support has been provided by Consumer Cellular and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people, and by contributions to your PBS station from viewers like you. Thank you.
You're watching PBS.